There should be one rule. Shut up, watch, record, and don't do anything threatening.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like some of the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you'd like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
So, Gene, tonight I am very excited to be here with you. There's certain films in the pantheon of Shat or history of the 70s, 80s, and 90s that define a genre, a time, a director, an actor. This film checks multiple boxes. And one of our great listeners wrote in, Jackson M., and I say that often. I say our great listeners, and there is more than a handful of listeners who've been with us now going on 8 years, 8+ years, who have supported us financially, emotionally, have shared the podcast with their friends. And Jackson M. is a 3-time commissioner. This is the trifecta in the Jackson M. films, and he's got great taste. He did Speed, long overdue. The Little Mermaid animated classic, Jackson, you hit it out of the park. And tonight, he went with a film that I don't think anybody could really say anything negative about. It is historically relevant, and it is in the hearts of many children of this age. It terrified us, and it is the 1977 American science fiction classic, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And Jackson was kind enough to call in with a voicemail and talk about his commission. And let's hear it in Jackson's own words.
Hello, Shat crew. This is Jackson. This would be my third movie commission. I am commissioning Close Encounters of the Third Kind. How this movie hasn't been reviewed yet is beyond me. But I'm looking forward to whenever it gets added to the schedule. It's the first Steven Spielberg movie I ever watched. And that's including Jurassic Park. I'm not sure how that happened, but it is one of my favorite Steven Spielberg movies, and my introduction to Richard Dreyfuss. I would love to see what you guys think of the movie, and I know you guys are going to love it. You probably have seen it a dozen times. Keep doing what you guys are doing. Love you guys.
Well, Jackson, Close Encounters certainly is a great pick, and we appreciate you doing it along with Speed and Little Mermaid. I think the reason why it's been overlooked is because 1977. So we really weren't in the habit of doing films from the 70s, and they still have to be exceptional films like Jaws, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind for us to be willing to touch them. We're not going to take any old movie from the 70s.
No, and Jackson, you say you've probably watched it many times. No, this is a hole in my viewing. I watched this when I was young, and I can't remember the last time I've watched it. So a lot of these commissions come in. Jackson, you get us to go back and revisit. I was watching this being like, this is not what I remembered, very different in positive and negative ways. So it was exciting to go back. And anyone who's listening to the podcast who has not seen this in a long time, go back and watch it. This is a key film. And for our listeners that are under 35, and you may not have ever heard of it, this really defined a genre for that time, and it's well worth your time.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a sci-fi drama written and directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Richard Dreyfuss and Terry Garr. The film depicts the stories of Roy Neary, an everyday blue-collar worker in Indiana whose life changes after an encounter with a UFO, and of Jillian, a single mother whose 3-year-old son is abducted by a UFO. Close Encounters was a long-cherished project for Spielberg. The title is derived from ufologist J. Allen Hynek's classification of close encounters with extraterrestrials, in which the third kind denotes human observations of extraterrestrials or animate beings. Made on a production budget of $19 million, Close Encounters was a critical and financial success, eventually grossing over $300 million worldwide. It received numerous awards and nominations at the 50th Academy Awards, 32nd British Academy Film Awards, the 35th Golden Globe Awards, and the 5th Saturn Awards, and has been widely acclaimed by the American Film Institute. A special edition was released theatrically in 1980. Spielberg agreed to create this edition to add more scenes that they had been unable to include in the original release, with the studio demanding a controversial scene depicting the interior of the extraterrestrial mothership. Spielberg's dissatisfaction with the alternate ending scene led to a third version, the director's cut on VHS and Laserdisc, remember that, in 1998, and later DVD and Blu-ray. That is the longest version, combining Spielberg's favorite elements from both previous editions, but removing the scenes inside the mothership. The film was later remastered in 4K and then re-released in theaters in 2017 for its 40th anniversary. I'm going to be totally honest here, Jackson. My memories of Close Encounters, Cocoon, and of all things batteries not included, are a jumbled mess. It's lights, people looking out of shutters, and aliens, ? So this really felt like a first watch for me. I'm glad I did it because I was wowed. I mean, absolutely floored by what they were able to accomplish effects-wise in 1977.
So when this came out, I was 4. So obviously I didn't see this in the theaters, but at some point I saw it. Probably around 12, somewhere around that. But this thing terrified me. It scared the shit out of me. You think about fire in the sky. If I was a mountain logger, that would scare the shit out of me. I'd be afraid that one day I'd be driving home in a pickup truck with my friends and I would just get abducted and probed and then just dumped on the side of the road. This, for a kid, yeah. I'm going to get lured out of my house. I'm going to get lured away by my toys up into some spaceship. Who knows? This was scary for a kid to watch about abduction. And this is not E.T. E.T. came out a couple years later. Very different experience for kids. Because back then, we'll get into it, parents weren't watching what we were doing. They weren't like, hey, kids. And again, now that I'm saying that, I had Emma watch the ending with me. So I have a little input from Emma. So yes, maybe I am, what is it? Re-victimizing my daughter the same way my parents did me. But hey, maybe it's our legacy.
Trauma is the gift that keeps on giving. Let's hit the trailer.
Close Encounters of the First Kind. Sighting of an unidentified flying object. Close Encounters of the Second Kind. Physical evidence of a UFO. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Actual contact. Columbia Pictures, in association with EMI, presents Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The director is Steven Spielberg, whose most recent motion picture, Jaws, is already a legend. The producers are Julia Phillips and Michael Phillips of The Sting and Taxi Driver. Creating special effects is Douglas Trumbull, who in this film goes far beyond his achievements in 2001: A Space Odyssey. For the music, there was only one choice. 11-time Academy Award nominee John Williams, composer of the scores for Jaws and Star Wars. The technical advisor is the world's foremost authority on unidentified flying objects, Dr. J. Allen Hynek of Northwestern University. Heading the cast is Richard Dreyfuss, who has shown his rare talent in such diverse films as American Graffiti, The Apprenticeship of Duty Kravitz, and Jaws. And making his American debut as an actor is the great French director François Truffaut, winner of the 1974 Academy Award. A close encounter could happen to anyone. It could happen to you. It does happen to Roy Neary. An average working man, Neary finds his life, his very world, changed.
Who are you people? We have very little time, Mr. Neary. We need answers from you. They're honest, direct, and to the point. Who are you
N'avez-vous
people?
pas fait récemment une rencontre?
Have you recently had a close encounter?
I want to speak to someone in charge.
Une rencontre plutôt inhabituelle?
I want to lodge a complaint.
A close encounter with something very unusual.
What the hell is going on around here? Who the hell are you people?
The title of the picture, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, refers to an intriguing possibility.
Well, a close encounter of the first kind is one is close, but nothing really happened.
Close encounter of the first kind is visible contact with a UFO.
Forget the shape and forget how fast it's going. It's something that you just can't explain.
Close encounters of the second kind are those which leave a physical trace. Holes in the ground,
Fern rings,
broken tree branches,
telephone lines down,
animals disturbed.
the stopping of car engines.
Then the close encounters of the third kind are the most interesting of all.
Close encounter of the third kind is really when you meet them.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The experience of an ordinary man shared by people from all over the world, irresistibly drawn by a compulsion they don't understand, to witness the most dramatic event in the history of the human race. And what you will see has never been seen before. Begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion.
In the Sonoran Desert, French scientist Claude McComb, his American interpreter, cartographer David Laughlin, and other researchers discover Flight 19, a group of United States Navy Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that went missing over the Bermuda Triangle on December 5th, 1945. The planes are in perfect condition, but without any occupants. An elderly witness nearby claims the sun came out at night and sang to him. Near Indianapolis, air traffic controllers watched two airline flights narrowly avoid a mid-air collision with a UFO.
So when I'm trying to think back, the last time I watched this, it has to be at least 20 plus years ago. You remember the big points. You remember the lights. You remember the abduction. You remember the ending. But what gets us there felt very fresh and very new to me and surprisingly compelling. I remembered very little of the film, and it opens up and it is action. It is in your face. It is grabbing me immediately. It opens up and there's a big mystery. There's something going on globally. It's all tied together. We've got like a mysterious task force. I don't know. Is it the UN? They're speaking French and Spanish. There's translators. There's a sandstorm. Gene, we got planes missing from 1945. I'm a sucker for anything time related. Wormholes, time travel. Give me the mystery. I'm all in. It really doesn't take much to entertain my brain. I'm in it. When I see those planes and the photos, it's compelling. It's global. It's big. And I didn't remember it starting off with this big of a scope, but it's undoubtedly compelling.
Normally, when these big movies are re-released and they say, oh, it's remastered for the theater and oh, we released this edition, I don't care. I think it's a marketing gimmick, whatever. This is different. This remastered version it's beautiful. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful. And Spielberg really does a great job of making everything seem so sweeping, like you said, Big D, not in a bombastic way. Okay. We're not talking Michael Bay or Simon West. It's not explosions and people flying through the air and all that stuff. This is more like the work he did with Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? It feels like a picture book version of an international adventure. It's, for lack of better words, romantic, exciting, beautiful, and it's a world that you really want to be in and you never get tired of looking at.
And you can feel Spielberg's DNA all over it. You can feel his later films. You can feel, I mean, the actors, he uses a lot of them, but you're in there. It's intimate. You're looking at the characters. You're feeling the excitement. And it is beautiful. It is beautiful to look at. And right off the bat, I did not remember it to be this big of an opening.
And let's not mistake this for Spielberg's later work where he had like gigantic budgets, right? This is about double the budget of Jaws, okay? But we're still talking $19 million, which in the 70s, I mean, it's a large sum of money, but it's by no means like the biggest budget that they had at the time. He makes good use of the budget, but Spielberg's also very, very good at making us use our imagination and letting actors act. And I think this is probably one of the best examples of that in his work. There is a terrific scene where you've got these air traffic controllers and they're talking to pilots who see a UFO, but they decline to report it as a UFO. And all you hear is the radio back and forth. It's tense. It's exciting. You're in the movie. Like you are invested in this, and you never actually see the pilots. You never actually see the UFO. It's just guys in a control tower looking at screens, but it works.
It totally works. And you think about the time, you got to go back. Now science fiction, it's something that's mainstream. The movies are big. It's the fandom is well known and established. But back in the 70s, this wasn't a science fiction film. You had Star Wars came out in 77 as well. This is that real world, Gene, you said, where it's not like Flash Gordon, where you got these ridiculous characters flying around on their rocket scooters and shooting lightning bolts. No, this was real, like air traffic controllers. They're out there. They're reporting what they're seeing. They're embarrassed, like you said. You said that with Jaws, we don't see the shark. And that was because technically they couldn't get it to work. He found it was more effective. There's a scene where Barry is in the kitchen and the kitchen's been destroyed and the dog door is flapping. We see Barry's little face and his eyes widen. We know there's creatures in the room. He's in the presence of the aliens, but they don't ever show it to us. They let us imagine what they look like, and they're not going to show it to us. The TWA pilots, they're embarrassed. They're professionals. Do you guys want to report anything? No. What am I going to report? I'm not going to waste my career. And that ties into, hey, everybody, there's a big conspiracy. You don't know what's going on. These things are out there. We're going to uncover a giant conspiracy that the government knows about. And this ties perfectly into the timing. You have Roswell up until here. People are questioning what's out there. And when this came out in the 70s, people must have gone out and been a little bit afraid. This really, I know it scared me as a kid, but adults as well, as to what the possibility of unknown objects and visitors could be. One day they might show up and just pull your kid out of the kitchen. Who knows?
Speaking of which, in Indiana, 3-year-old Barry wakes to find his toys operating on their own. He starts to follow something outside, forcing his mother, Jillian, to chase after him. Large-scale power outages begin rolling through the area, forcing electric utility lineman Roy Neary to investigate. While he gets his bearings, Roy experiences a close encounter with a UFO. The UFO takes off with 3 others in the sky, and the metaphysical experience leaves Roy mesmerized. Researchers are similarly baffled to find the SS Cotopaxi in the middle of the Gobi Desert, intact and completely empty.
So we obviously don't know anything about these aliens. We're going to assume they have to be more advanced. They're probably super intelligent. They understand how the science works, right? They know how to go through time. That you assume they would know what's going on. But their actions show either callousness or carelessness because they have to understand what they're doing to people. It seems like they're benevolent. Like they're like, let's go find people from different times and let's have them visit and we'll share knowledge. But what they're doing is scary as shit. It's terrifying. In Explorers, right? They went into space, and I think they found out that the aliens were actually like some juvenile aliens who were using their parent ship. And like, oh, we're going to get in trouble. And it was aliens just pranking humans who were watching TV, like television broadcasts. That would be a better explanation than what we get here, because the aliens don't care. They seem to openly terrify people. They go and they're not like, hey, we're friendly, come here. No, they use bright lights. They go over their house. They burn them with radiation. You don't think an advanced species knows, hey, we're burning these people. We're irradiating them. We're hurting them. Oh, no, it's okay. Let's go to their house. They go after little Barry. You could lure that kid out with candy. You could Pennywise him with some cotton candy. Instead, you shine every light in his house. You bring all his toys to life. You try to come down the chimney and grab him. You undo the screws and the ducts and fill his house with smoke. This is either like an elaborate punking by the aliens. They're torturing these people. You don't come in peace. This screams, I'm coming to kill you. We're coming to rip you apart. We're going to use Barry as an experiment. It doesn't make sense. If you're coming in friendship, you wouldn't do any of this, Gene, would you?
I remember when Joss Whedon came out with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it turned a lot of people off because they called it Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, goths were like, well, I'm not going to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Mainstream people were like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer sounds lame. It was on purpose, right? Like, the idea was that if you weren't open to something called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we don't want you in our audience, right? Maybe it's like what the aliens are doing here. They only want cool babies, right? So they're like, hey, they're going to be freaky. And Barry's chill. Barry's cool as hell, dude. Barry's fearless. He's I don't give a shit. He's the most chill baby. They're like, that's the baby we want. So we're going to be scary. If you pass the test, you get to chill with us aliens.
So that's the measure. Like, Barry's got a shitty
process.
life. Yeah. So Barry's got a terrible life. Jill's an attentive
Jillian's
mother.
Not great. Yeah.
She's a terrible mother. He's thinking, hey, this is my way out of this mess. Maybe that's it. Or maybe they're just assholes. Because I'm imagining this is what, if we had spaceships right now, Gene, and you had like groups of friends in their 20s who were like, hey, what do you guys want to do this weekend? Hey, let's go visit that other planet and terrorize those kids and fly around and abduct them. This is what assholes would do. You would get drunk, you would take a ship, and you would just fly over somebody's house, shoot light down the chimney, you would lift them up, give them minor like burns, and then you would disappear. This is what asshole aliens would do. We would do this, Gene.
Yeah, I mean, it beats having a podcast. Do that instead.
That's
what
awesome.
we do. We abduct people, and then we force them to listen to the podcast.
I mean, this is the next step in YouTube, like the surprise videos or the punking, pranking videos. There's that alien YouTube where they're like, hey, we went to Earth. Look at the shock on these people's face. Look at Barry's mom trying to get him through the doggy door. Zoinks.
Big D, prior to doing Close Encounters of the Third Kind, we did the 3-hour viewing of Betty Blue. But before that, mercifully short movies, okay? Thank you, commissioners, for those short ones. We love them. Payback, 100 minutes. Fish Called Wanda, 108 minutes. Right in our wheelhouse. That's about what our pickled attention spans are capable of wrapping themselves around, right? Did you know, Big D, Face Off, it was only 9 minutes shorter than Close Encounters. 9 minutes shorter. This movie is painfully slow to get going. The setup, it takes like half the movie. And don't get me wrong, listeners, I don't need this. I don't need this to be Independence Day. Where, like, the president comes out, we're going to go get those aliens. And Will Smith is punching aliens in the face or anything. But you got to admit, some parts of this movie, a little repetitive. They dragged just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think it's the beginning. I told you, I think the building of the mystery and the aliens towards the middle, the more domestic problems, and then maybe the end, the inept attempt to mountaineer the Devil's Tower. That was a bit much, but the beginning, Gene, I got to disagree. I thought it was get to the point. It was fairly fast, and it was, for me, again, anything time related, it was exciting.
And there might be a reason we saw the beginning a little bit differently. Spielberg is really putting on a display for us early in the movie. We know historically through the Spielberg films we've seen, he really likes playing with light. He's a big fan of flashlights, light filtered through a map, light peeking through shutters, UFOs, putting on light shows. Close Encounters did something even cooler, I thought, which was he used darkness in a really cool way. Living in suburban Arizona, like I am always in light. City lights, street lights, lights from Sky Harbor Airport. We got radio towers on South Mountain. We don't get a lot of darkness where I live. If you get outside of the valley, it's a little bit different. But here in the valley, it's just light everywhere. Sometimes I find myself missing how dark places like Ohio and Indiana are. Just fields with no light sources in a world that actually goes to sleep. Like towns out there in West Central Ohio, in Central Indiana, like shit shuts down. The lights go out. Like there's nothing happening after like 9 or 10 p.m. And I got to imagine even more so in the 70s, right? Nighttime was mysterious and cozy and quiet. And Spielberg captured that. And it made the light even more interesting, a little more precious. I found myself really marveling at how beautiful these night scenes were.
I mean, you said you confuse this with Batteries Not Included.
Yeah.
That is one of the only like movies with alien visitors that happen in the city. It doesn't, like the western part of the US, when you get out into the middle of nowhere and you experience true darkness, like I can't see my hand in front of my face, and you look up at the sky, that makes you question what's out there. You can just look at the stars and you just look at the planets, you look at the moon, and it makes you wonder. It's so much better for storytelling. And other than Batteries Not Included, you couldn't tell this story to somebody in suburbia. But you lay back, you look up at the sky, and you think, we cannot be alone. And we've debated on this podcast multiple times about 80s parents and that the kids who grew up in the 80s, we were feral. You would go out, you would do your adventures, you get on your bike, and as long as you were home when the street lights came on or when they gave you that, hey, it's 10 p.m., do you know where your kids are? And your parents remembered that they had kids, and you didn't get arrested, you were cool. You could come back. And this is going to be our first view, other than the Brodies in Jaws and unattentiveness at their kids swimming out in the water where there's been multiple shark killings. We get some view of the 70s family structure in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I got to be honest, Gene, it's not pretty. Now, I don't know if this is Spielberg's personal experience. There's two main families in the story, and both are a dysfunctional nightmare, and we're going to get into them. And I think I know why. Spielberg, when he wrote this, he was young, and at the time, he did not have a family. And he said this in an interview later on. He said, the story of Close Encounters was a kind of escapist adventure that I thought would be for a downtrodden, trapped, middle-aged guy who might want to experience something different. So the character of Roy is coming from Spielberg, who didn't have a family. And Roy's family, it's a mess, and I'm going to get to it later on. So we're going to focus here at this point about Barry and his mother, Jillian, and maybe Barry's quest for a better life and aliens as an attentive parent. You know, they're out in the middle. It looks like a kind of a rural town, right? They're in like a farmhouse. They've got some land. There's not a busy road nearby. So I'm going to give her a pass on that. Jillian's asleep. Barry's got toys. Maybe he plays at night. But Barry escapes the house. Barry's off running. And she says, Barry! She goes out into the woods and catches Barry. Barry escapes again. Barry now runs down a busy 2-lane road. I'm getting flashbacks to Pet Sematary, where that kid just stepped into traffic and he's hit and just roadkill. She loses him again. He goes down the road. She picks him up, brings him to the side of the road. Gene, he gets away like a slippery, greased pig. Right back into the middle of the road. She goes out, doesn't pick him up. She takes a knee. Roy in the truck almost hits her. It's terrible, Gene. She's struggling with this kid. If my child was almost killed twice in front of me by cars, running off into the woods, I would lock a door. I would do something. How is she not controlling this kid?
Well, she's not alone, though, because Barry runs up. There's like a gathering of stray children in the night after the aliens visit. So maybe this is just the 70s. Maybe like parents. This is why kids are on leashes now. This is why you have, cameras monitoring the children. This is exactly it. It's because in the 70s, kids were running everywhere.
See, but I'm going to get into this. That was like a group of misfit toys in the back of that truck. I don't think that was like normal people.
Oh.
That they gave them the look like, hey, you're one of us. And it was a very strange gathering. That would have been enough for me if I was Jillian to gather up my child, go home, and lock all the doors.
Well, Roy becomes fascinated by UFOs to the dismay of his wife, Ronnie. He obsesses over subliminal images of a mountain shape, often making models of it. Jillian, meanwhile, also becomes obsessed, sketching the unique mountain image. Soon after, she is terrorized in her home by a UFO which descends from the clouds. She fights off violent attempts by the UFO and unseen beings to enter her home. But in the chaos, Barry's abducted. Lacombe, Lachlan, and a group of United Nations experts continue to investigate increasing UFO activity and strange related occurrences.
So, Jim, we just talked about the group of misfits that they come together on the hillside to look at the lights. This is before, the normies come out. This is the people who have been selected to come out and view the lights, and the aliens have somehow communicated with them. This has to be, for me, this has to be Spielberg commenting on the fact that whenever anyone claims I was abducted by aliens, I was experimented on, it's the crackpot gene. It's never the lawyer. It's never the college professor. It's never the kind old grandmother. It's always the weird crackpot mechanic who has a drinking problem, or the mountain logger who's drunk coming home, who's the one who's abducted. Because in this movie, if an alien was to genuinely, a real alien, to contact and to select a human being to maybe bring with them to their planet, to share knowledge, to become an ambassador, you would not pick any of these people. Any of the people in the truck, some of them looked like, I don't want to be like a big city elitist, but they look like a little bit of backwoods hillbilly. They looked a bit strange, but no, these are the ones. They're lost. And Roy's family, it's an unmitigated disaster, Gene. You question having kids. This movie would make me not want to have kids if I see it like this. Roy's family, the kids are out of control. Toby is smashing a doll in the playpen. He's beating the walls. Everyone is screaming. Roy gets fired. He spirals out of control. These poor kids, they're watching their dad melt down. He's crying in the shower, Gene, with the red light on. He's saying, hug me, hug me. The other kid runs and smashing the bat in the wall. Daddy loves you. Come here, kids. He is eventually forced out of the house. The kids get in the station wagon in their nightgowns, and they run to a friend's house. These are the people who the aliens choose, Gene. Is it a mistake, or is this the ones they figure, hey, they're more likely to come with us because they have nothing to lose? And if they don't come with us, who's going to believe their story?
I mean, I would think that Roy was a real winner if I were an alien, because they have 2 station wagons at their house, which is a pretty big deal. I never really thought about it before you brought it up, as far as who do you abduct, right? It would make sense. If you're an alien, you want the smartest or the most fit. And after observing Earthlings for a while, you'd be like, oh, you know what we ought to do? Raid Olympic Village, set down at MIT campus, and pick up the bright ones. What are you doing in Flagstaff, Arizona?
You see, but I think I'm thinking about it wrong. Say, Gene, you just got a crazy whim. You say, you know what? I'm going to go to Croatia. Tomorrow, I'm going to Croatia. You can't call up your most successful friend who has a job and a career and say, we're going to Croatia tomorrow. Yeah. You have to call up the friend who can actually say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's go to Croatia for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's why King B gets abducted. You don't think?
He doesn't even have a passport.
I think Chad would go if it was all female aliens.
Yeah, he would.
He would definitely go. He would be an interstellar Dan Blazarian. He would be.
Jesus Christ. Witnesses in India report that the UFOs make distinctive sounds. Scientists broadcast the sounds to outer space, but are mystified by the response, a seemingly meaningless series of numbers. 104, 44, 30, 40, 36, 10. Lachlan recognizes it as geographical coordinates, which point to Devil's Tower in Wyoming. The Army evacuates the area while preparing a secret landing zone for the UFOs. Meanwhile, Roy's increasingly eccentric behavior causes Ronnie to abandon him. When a news program about Devil's Tower airs on television, Roy and Jillian recognize the same mountain they've been visualizing. They set out for the tower in spite of public warnings about toxic gas. So Big D Roy, as we mentioned, acting really, really weird. He's making sculptures in his mashed potatoes. He's not normal after he saw the UFO. Busting windows. He's hauling dirt inside the house. He's building a replica of the tower inside the house, right? As a parent, his wife, Ronnie, naturally, she's concerned for the welfare and safety of their children, right? Like something's not right with dad. And this might be the dude in me. I don't know. I feel like she bailed a little too quickly on her husband. He's being weird, yeah, but like we said in Betty Blue, like maybe try to get him some help. Maybe sit down and talk to him. Don't just grab the kids and leave. And so I started wondering, our commitment to our wives, right? How weird could Vanessa get before you took Emma and went to stay with Roger for a while?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it would be quicker than I would expect. If I got fired, she found me crying in the bathtub and she said, "Let's go get therapy.
Yeah,
we can talk about it." And I said, no. And I went and turned the living room into like a 30-foot sculpture of the Devil's Tower. That was a bit excessive. At least the other people got a good medium. If I was doing charcoal paintings, Gene, right? or like watercolors of the Devil's Tower, Vanessa would be in for like 6 months. But the second I cover the living room with half of the yard and do a scaled 3-dimensional model that wasn't just mashed potatoes, she's gone. She's gone to Rogers.
See, but you flip that around. I'm saying you. If she was the one being weird, how long are you sticking around?
See, but I'm twisted. I would want to watch her spiral. I would be like, what is going on? What are we going to miss? Emma, if we leave, I'd be like, listen, if mommy tries to get you with her to go to the alien ship, don't do it. But let's see what she's making. It could be like the Mona Lisa. She might make something where I would buy into the conspiracy, and then we could make it a family road trip.
Yeah, I'm going full Zorg on this one. Like, I'm waiting until an eye gets poked out, and then I just smother my wife. That's the way it's going to go. No one's going to Devil's Tower. You're going night-night.
No.
Well, several travelers heading for Devil's Tower are apprehended by the Army, but Roy and Jillian reach the site just as UFOs appear in the night sky. The government specialists at the site begin to communicate with the UFOs using light and sound on a large electrical billboard. An enormous mothership eventually lands to release many abductees from different eras: World War II pilots, Cotopaxi sailors, adults, children, animals. Barry also returns and reunites with Jillian. The extraterrestrials finally emerge from the mothership and select Roy to join their travels. Lacombe uses hand signs that correspond to the 5-note tonal phrase, and an extraterrestrial replies with the same gestures, smiles, and returns to its ship, which takes to the sky. Carl Weathers and the Army, they're rounding up the visitors, okay? But Roy and Jillian, because they are the protagonists of this film, they get free. They decide to go off-roading and then hike up to Devil's Tower. There's another dude with them. This guy's name is Larry. And I understand. Just because somebody's in a movie, it doesn't mean they're important. Okay. They're side characters all the time. Throwaway guys, right? But Larry's a weird one because he shows up. He makes it that far with them. He hikes. He gets like tired. And then they hit him with the Easy 4 gas. He gets knocked out. We never hear from him again. I don't think he's dead, right? He just exits the movie. And I found myself distracted for the rest of the movie. What was Larry doing in this movie? He wasn't funny. He wasn't scary. He was just there and then he wasn't.
God, Larry was so close.
Yeah, he's right there.
So close. The aliens, they must have, like, they hint at it, that how many thousands of people got the message, but either didn't know where it was. Aliens, again, you're being a fucking asshole. Don't give them this cryptic, like, puzzle maze or this mystery of this object. Just write. Devil's Tower. You can do that. Just write Devil's Tower.
Fucking easier. If you want Roy, just go get Roy. Just go to his house and get him.
Suck him up. Take him
Suck
up in
him
the ship.
up.
You had
You did
him.
it with
You had
Barry.
him. You had him. Get him in the ship. But again, maybe it's a prank. Maybe they're fucking. It's like it's the internet. The interstellar Mr. Beast who's filming his next video. But yeah, I don't understand why you're doing that. Just get them there. And my question is, the rest of this group in the helicopter, you got to Wyoming. You got past the barbed wire, past the quarantine, past the sedated animals. You're invested. All of a sudden, you're going to believe, don't take your mask off. You saw them. You could. And Larry, God bless you, Larry. You tried. His cardio, he quit jogging, Gene. That's what got him. And in any kind of disaster film or zombies, your cardio is on point. That will dictate whether or not people you survive. But you said, what about Larry? I got a better one, Gene. What about Ronnie, Brad, Sylvia, and Toby? That's Roy's family. And this is something we've forgotten about. And watching this as a 50-year-old father and husband, people, this is early Spielberg. He said this is a story about a middle-aged man who's feeling trapped. And he said he would not make this film today with the choice that Roy makes. And we have to go back and we have to visit this. Roy now, he has alienated his family, his kids.
Ba-dum-bum.
Oh, I didn't even mention that, right? He's not happy with his life. He gets this vision. He kisses Jillian. He's like, fuck my family. I'm going to live this middle income, like average life with my train set and my wife nagging me about my job. Hell no. I'm climbing the mountain. I'm out of here. I'm going to abandon my kids. Not once does he even think, Jillian, I've got a family. You've got Barry back. I can't do this. How do you abandon your family as a character, a narrative, a plot point, and expect the audience to like this movie?
I mean, I think you said it all right there. His kids are assholes. His wife left him. You know, why prolong the inevitable, man? Move on.
Dude,
right?
Picture him, because you know they're filming this, right?
Yeah.
For historical value.
Right.
Imagine if Roy turns around and just flips the camera off. Fuck you, Ronnie. I'm out of here. He just fucking leaves. And she's like, that son of a bitch. I knew it. And he's out of there.
Waves a hot dog at the camera.
Yeah, just wiggles it and I'm out of here. And they've taken it serious for so long. And they've tried to make this is going to be, Gene, an impactful moment. The aliens and the humans are meeting. And there's a couple of missteps. Maybe this is early Spielberg. It's the 70s. And most of them are musical. The iconic, the bam, 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 that's iconic. It works. We get what they're doing. But when they mix in that Jaws, bam, bam, bum, 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 I'm like, holy shit, we're going to get a different tone here. That's a threatening sound. We already know what it is. Maybe there's going to be a turn here where it's going to be a questionable ending. But no, and then they make it even worse where it's that controversial ending that Spielberg hated, where he's ascending into the ship. He's been selected by those weird ass little like children aliens. I don't know what those were. And you had the taller one. He's going up. They start playing an instrumental version of Wish Upon a Star. And I'm like, how did they get the rights to that? And then I'm like, oh, it's that earlier Pinocchio reference where Roy is going to take the family to see Pinocchio. Did Disney throw this in there? It just felt so heavy-handed and cheesy. Instead of making it a more mysterious, existential step into the universe and a relationship with interstellar beings, it turned into a commercial for fucking Pinocchio.
I wish I could defend any of this, Big D, but it really feels, like you said, young director, sort of amateurish work. I mean, Spielberg definitely had the visuals down, but the story, it might have been too big for him. It feels like wrapping it up is kind of where it suffered. The main tone, iconic. It makes sense that these are tones that are like universally recognized as a bridge to communication between two species. And then it turns into like galactic jam session.
I said before that the aliens were doing everything to look threatening to humanity. The humans are just as dumb.
Yep.
They go out and instead of putting their smartest and their brightest out in front, this is supposed to be a select group of international scientists, leaders. They're going to meet at Devil's Tower. They're going to get a chance to meet an alien for the first time. Let's get the brightest that humanity has to offer. Instead, we get this group of like generic 150, maybe 30-year-old white guys in lab coats running around chaotically, this like little landing area, waving objects at the spaceship that look like weapons. Hey, you've got a radar dish? Aim it at the ship. Hey, you got a microphone? Aim it at the ship. Everything. Let's act frantic and crazy. Let's move aggressively. Everything. When those 3 little alien scout ships come through, real scientists would be like, okay, let's just wait. Let's see what happens. We've made first contact. We've played the tones. Let's just wait. Instead, these guys are like, woo! High fives, thumbs up. They all run out like it's over. What scientist is going to do that? And then they mix it in, Gene, where you get the announcer on the microphone who's like, 8:15, the alien craft has been seen. And then he starts, oh, it's a lovely day, everybody. Look how beautiful the sky is tonight with the alien visits. Why are you narrating this historic scientific event? It would be like somebody being like, we have cured cancer. And oh, it's so delightful. It's such a beautiful spring day here. And we've cured cancer, people. Shut up. It's a historic moment. This is the worst of humanity. There should be one rule. Shut up, watch, record, and don't do anything threatening. And these idiots do all the wrong things.
I think the movie was trying to tell us people were so awestruck that they forgot their jobs, right? Especially when the mothership appeared. But also, did you notice like there was a distinct lack of documentation when the aliens actually showed up? So they're like recording everything. Then you got the little, like you said, the kid aliens like bumbling around the landing pad. Nobody's recording shit. There isn't a camera in sight. You know, I've been watching a lot of the presidential debates, and Donald Trump keeps bringing up, you know, we made NATO pay their fair share. I think we need a Trump at these negotiations because where the fuck's the exchange here? Okay, they got a bunch of humans. Don't we get a little alien buddy? Like, don't we get an alien that moves to Wyoming that we get to hang out with and study?
Dude, I don't explain. What were you doing? Yeah. Why did you take all these people?
Right.
Why did you bring him back? Why did you select him? What's going on? Why did one of our brightest employees run to the bathroom? I thought he was going after Roy. No, the guy's going to take a shit or he's going to puke. It's crazy. And the aliens, again, instead of looking friendly, like those little things coming out and like wobbling around, you send out the one tall guy who looks like an insect who can't get out of the door. So he's got to kneel down and look like a threatening insect. At that point, I'm a general up on the tower watching. Open fire! Open fire! They're aggressive. This was like a disaster waiting to happen.
So to put a bow on it, Big D, I think the movie is beautiful. We agree on that. It's well acted. It's iconic. But I found myself deeply dissatisfied at the end because nihilist that I am, I still would like a movie I watched to have a point.
Yeah.
What we saw was a series of activities, but I didn't get the meaning of it, right? So people saw UFOs. Okay. The scientists, they had a jam session with the aliens. Aliens came down. They smiled. None of it seemed to have any meaning. And I kept waiting for like, what's the twist? Like they've been here all along. They are us. Or like a very emotional moment where Richard Dreyfuss like goes into the mothership and something is eliciting a feeling out of me. I felt nothing. I was just like, okay. So he went. Cool. Am I alone in this? Am I asking too much of this film? Am I numb? Like, what's wrong with me?
No, I think now we do it better. You think about Arrival.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Aliens show up. What would humanity do? We're not all going to cooperate. Half of the world who's like religious is going to think, oh, they're coming to kill us. The other scientific half is going to say, hey, we need to make contact. Then all the different countries are going to think about their strategic advantage by going and making first contact. So that does it, I think, more realistically. But yeah, what did we learn? In the end, it wasn't, hey, there's a big world out there. Humanity should come together. We should work together. You have this big global task force. Hey, we're all together. Instead, it's a small group of nitwits running to the porta potty or forgetting to record and just waving instruments in the air. It's very strange. And I watched this with Emma, and it was fun to see it through a kid's eye. I watched the end of it with her. She's a little weary of it, and I had to reassure her that the aliens were not bad because she wouldn't watch it otherwise. So we're watching it, and that insect comes out, and Emma goes, I don't know about this. I don't like this. And the little aliens come out, and she's like, are those kids? What is this? She said, I don't like this. She's like, these people shouldn't be smiling and high-fiving. They should be running in fear. She goes, why is Jillian not asking where her child is? Why is Roy more interested in kissing her than going down and either seeing his family or what's going on there? It's a big mess at the end where I don't think that Spielberg at this point could tie the bow on a cute message, whereas E.T. later on, I think he does it. It's like an interstellar friendship and bonding between different beings and the Earth and the humans in their place in the universe. Here it was just like, hey, we let you abduct some more people. We got some back. Nobody asked what was going on, why you're doing it, why you chose them. It was more, I think, visual and style over substance. But I wish I had a better answer, but I don't.
Yeah, I think the last time I watched E.T., I cried twice, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
That's a moving film. This one, not so much.
No.
All right. Well, now's the time in the podcast to give our Shat scores. Shat scores are our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get out perspective. But 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's not Merle Haggard, but great. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of the movie. It's when you finally meet intelligent life from another planet and it looks like sentient hot dogs. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
It's hard, and this feels sacrilegious because it's Spielberg. It's iconic. It's a genre-defining film. But when you compare it to what came down the road later, it pales in comparison. Visually, yes, it's stunning. The remastered is beautiful, but narratively and what is it saying? It's kind of weak. It's a bit all over and imagine if Elliot just said, hey, Mom, fuck you. Hey, I'm out of here. And just left.
Bye.
And just bailed on his family. The fact that they had a father abandon his kids without even a thought. There was no debate, Gene. There was nothing. Hey, I'm out of here, kids. Later. See you later. This seems like a 1-wipe film compared to Betty Blue. I think it's a 2-wipe. It's not as good as history as said it is.
I think I'm going to be a little more critical of the film. I think that it is vintage Spielberg. It is very pretty. Richard Dreyfuss, as usual, is fantastic. I loved him in Jaws. I loved him in this. But there's no story here. I think that's the problem, is we just get a series of events, but no story. And I think part of it is that it's not focused enough. Connect me to somebody and make me feel something. Give me an oh fuck moment. Whether that oh fuck is a twist, whether that oh fuck is a feeling, whether that oh fuck is an epiphany, something that makes it worth watching or makes me feel something. And I just didn't feel anything in this movie other than amazed by the quality of effects. But that's not a film. It's just a series of shots.
What is the intent of why do they want Barry? Why would you groom a child? You're luring a child out of his home with toys.
Yeah.
If we went to a planet and lured children out of their houses with candy, what could we be doing that would be a normal, explainable reason for luring children out of a home? They can't share knowledge. You can't share technology. It's a child. Barry can walk around. He goes, toys, sky, mommy. What advantage do the aliens have in abducting Barry?
Yeah, I mean, everybody coming off the ship seemed pretty okay. So
yeah, they were
Barry
a little confused though, Gene. They were a
little confused because they fucking to them with the time dilation, it's been like an hour, but they land and it's been fucking 30 years or whatever.
Like, what do they do with Barry? Who takes care of Barry in the ship?
Well, I think they're all children. They just chill. Probably watch Teletubbies or something.
Barry seemed a little worse for the wear of his intergalactic travels.
All right, Jackson. Well, I'm coming in at 3.5 wipes on this one. Big D came in at 2 wipes. It gives us an average wipe score of 2.75 wipes for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
So, Gene, with that score, that now ties us in the 249 spot with Kingpin, Notting Hill, Rad, and another iconic science fiction film, Robot Jocks. So I don't think it's quite where any of us thought it would fall, but
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch, and you wonder what could have been.
All right, Big D, before we close out this episode, we got time for a few voicemails. We'll start out with a voicemail from Jeremiah calling in about A Long Kiss Goodnight.
Hey, Shat The Movies. This is Jeremiah. I am the commissioner of The Long Kiss Goodnight, and I am calling in for the very first time in response to a voicemail left by a very passionate listener. I think his name was Dave. You guys played the voicemail after the Wildcats review, and Dave specifically called in about The Long Kiss Goodnight and how he felt shorted and how he believed that I, the commissioner, might have felt shorted in that you guys reviewed The Long Kiss Goodnight with just two people, Gene Lyons and the King Bee. And so I just wanted to call in and set the record straight that although I originally felt a female perspective would have been great because it's Gina Davis on ice skates, smoking dudes, female-led movie with a female reviewer might have been a good choice. What I originally thought. I felt that what we got was something totally out of like left field and was very unique and very cool. Like the idea that King B has been recommending this movie for 20 years to Gene Lyons, and I was the reason that Gene Lyons was finally forced to watch the awesome movie, The Long Kiss Goodnight, because it got commissioned by me. That is so unique and special that it tops having the full assortment of the crew. So I just want to set the record straight that I do not feel shorted on that. And when you think about it, too, this is kind of a unique thing that we've all experienced. We've all have recommended a movie that maybe we don't necessarily remember that great. And it turned out to not be what we thought it was. That's kind of like the whole point of Shat the Movies. Like, is this movie worth the rewatch or is it better left in nostalgia? And I literally just had this experience with my wife 2 nights ago. We watched Resident Evil. I said, hey, let's watch Resident Evil. It's got Mila Jovovich in it. She's hot as fuck. And this badass soundtrack. The score was done by Marilyn Manson. Anyway, I thought it was, what I remembered, a great movie. And like 10 minutes into it, I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry. And to hear the King Bee and how this like post review, how he kind of had that same experience, dude. I loved it. So just know that it was good on my front. And I believe Dave also called in on a second note. He called in about age shaming. And I really think that, I commissioned it. So I listened to it like a psychopath, like 15 times. Your guys' review of Long Kiss Goodnight. I did not sense you were age shaming Gina at all. You mentioned her age once or twice, but I think it's clear that your intent was not to shame. But yeah, that's all. I've said my part. That's all I got to say. I can't wait till you guys review my next movie, Con Air. Let's go. Love you guys.
Jeremiah, thank you so much for calling in, and I hope you liked the Con Air episode. To give you guys a little bit of insight, too, as far as the King Bee and I go with Long Kiss Goodnight, even after we recorded, like for days and weeks after we recorded that episode, he still was apologetic about it. Like he brings it up almost every time I see him. Like, dude, I'm really, really sorry you had to watch that movie. And I don't mind. And you're absolutely right, Jeremiah. Part of the reason when people ask, like, you guys picked the movie, Gene, it's your birthday or whatever, like you pick the movie. I'm sort of afraid to, because I'm afraid that a movie that I love, that is dear to me, upon rewatch, especially upon critical rewatch, might not be what I remembered. And it makes me very, very, very nervous. And we've had a few of those where there are movies that I absolutely loved or thought I loved, and they were quite shit.
So Jeremiah, I don't know if you listened to last week's episode. If you were my friend or you were local, Jeremiah, you would be my test subject for Betty Blue. I would bet you I could get Jeremiah well into at least 2/3 of the film. He would sit there and he'd be like, hey, I'm going to give it a chance.
Yeah.
That would be my entry. Jeremiah would be my winner. He's my stallion. I could ride him to victory in the Betty Blue Challenge.
Wow. Well, it's erotic. It's psychological thriller.
Let's sit down and have I'll make you the bowl of the coffee with my wiener.
Jeremiah, thank you so much for your voicemail. Next up, we have a voice that we've been waiting to hear from for a while. Wonder if he was still okay. And here he is. It's Tom in Midland, Texas.
Tom, Midland, Texas. I'm calling about a couple of things. First of all, I'm calling to see about special commissioning or live reviewing at one of two horror movies. I have a special connection to both of those movies, and if we could do that, I'd either like that or live review it with Gene and King B. And one of the two horror movies are Final Exam from 1981 or Joyride from 2001. I know it's right outside the Shat The Movies, but it's like it was made in the 1980s or 90s. And second of all, after all this, I would like to either live review or special commission a movie that was filmed in my hometown. And I would love for you all to review that movie. And me and my family were extras in it. But it is a crappy movie that was filmed at a festival in my hometown. And it is best of the best 3. Ooh. And I would love for you to review it and probably crap all over it, but it's a fun, crappy movie. So, alrighty. I hope you all have a good week, and thank you all very much.
Tom, it's great to hear from you. Best of best 3. The only thing I remember about it is there's a fight scene where a guy is dressed as a clown. I would love to do that one. I have not seen Joyride or Final Exam, so all those sound good. And I know there have been several listeners who recently have kind of stepped up and said they would love to support a Tom film to do, to sponsor it for you. So if you would like to do any of those, Joyride, Final Exam, or Best of the Best 3, please get in touch with us at support. No.
Hosts.
Yeah. No.
The page?
No. Don't we have a special email for commissions?
No.
Okay. So you can email us hosts@shatpod.com and let us know that you'd like to commission one of Tom's films. Big D, have you seen any of the 3?
I just looked up the poster for Final Exam.
Yeah.
It looks like Student Bodies was not a comedy. That's what it looks like. The poster is generic, like guy standing silhouette with a knife, and it says Final Exam. Some may pass the test. God help the rest. And it looks like generic, but the chance of seeing Tom and the family as extras, whew,
right?
Tom, you listen. We can only take you so far. You have to get us over that mountain. You got to get us. Help us, Tom. Tell us. Give us guidance.
Finally, we have a voicemail from Safety Dave, who's calling in about national holidays.
Hey, Shat Crew. Safety Dave here. You may know me as Big Dave, or the guy that told Gene to stop talking about ROTC, then said it was okay, and then said it was okay again. Well, Shat Crew, you know that if I am leaving you a voicemail, I must have gotten summoned by, you guessed it, the speak pipe to talk about a national holiday. I've always called in on a holiday. My first one I ever called in at was St. Patrick's Day 2023, 4th of July, National Digital Parenting Week. So it was a week, Gene. You should have got that whole week off work. And then now, boom, this is National Dog Theft Awareness Week and also National Bubblegum Week, and fucking tomorrow is the Ides of March. One of the reasons I'm calling in, Gene, because Big D had heart surgery. Ash got in a car wreck, but nothing's happened to you so far, and tomorrow's the Ides of March. And you know what? I know you're not going to get this voicemail in time, but just be careful, man. It's like Friday the 13th, but it feels like a leprechaun.
Well, something must have happened to him. Seems foreboding.
They came for him.
You bring it up,
yeah,
and then you become a target.
Yeah. Well, Safety Dave, thankfully I survived the Ides of March. All my dogs are also, knock on wood, okay. That was just such a good reminder from Safety Dave on just what a fucking crazy year it's been. Yeah, you had your heart thing. We tried to do a chop top together. Ash sort of disappeared. And the podcast keeps on going, like you said, in its 8th year. It's crazy how fast time flies.
Yeah, I hope the Safety Dave's still alive.
Yeah.
He wasn't murdered.
Wow.
Dark days. Dark days.
Maybe 30 years from now.
Keep your pets safe.
Mothership will drop him off in Wyoming.
If aliens came, Gene, they would select us. Come on. Roy.
They take Safety Dave for sure.
No.
No?
No, he's far too stable. Yeah. No, he is nothing like Roy. Nothing. Safety Dave would not build a 30-foot replica of the Devil's Tower out of unstable soil and gravel from his neighbor's yards.
Well, Safety Dave, thank you so much for the warning. I apologize for not getting to it sooner, but we are doing our best to get to voicemail whenever we have the discipline to leave a few minutes at the end of the episode. Speaking of which, that is the end of this episode. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
So, Gene, I'm going to break with tradition. This film is a special event that's coming up, and I think you need to read it. This is years in the making. This is your Time Rider. This is your Magnus Opus. You please, Gene, what film are we reviewing next week?
Big D, I am very excited to announce next week's film. 2 out-of-work actors, the anxious, luckless Marwood and his acerbic, alcoholic friend Withnail, spend their days drifting between their squalid flat, the unemployment office, and the pub. When they take a holiday by mistake at the country house of Withnail's flamboyantly gay uncle, Monty, they encounter the unpleasant side of the English countryside: tedium, terrifying locals, and torrential rain. This one was commissioned by Mike T. so thoughtfully. It came out June 19th, 1987, and was written and directed by Bruce Robinson and distributed by Handmade Films.
Gene, is this film 3 hours?
It is not. It is 2 hours.
Fuck yes. I'm all on board.
It is probably, and someone's going to come at me with like Airplane or something like that, I feel the most quotable film I've ever watched. And while you're watching it, if you haven't seen it yet, Big D, understand that they are high out of their fucking minds, this whole movie. It makes it make a lot more sense.
I'm excited.
Thank you, Mike, for the upcoming commission. Thank you, Jackson, for commissioning Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support our podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
To a delightful weekend in the country.
You are cordially invited to spend a carefree weekend in the English countryside. Bask in the warm sunshine.
We've gone on holiday by mistake.
Enjoy the rustic pleasure of country living.
It's gonna be so cold in here. Like Greenland in here.
Wants to get down there and have sex with those cows.
Partake of fine varietal wine.
You're drunk.
I assure you I'm not, officer. I've only had a few ales.
Take lunch at a charming pub.
We want the finest wines available to humanity. We want them here, and we want them now.
Fraternize with cheery locals.
I don't care where you come from.
Hans!
experience culinary pleasures.
I can make it die.
There is, you will agree, certain je ne sais quoi about a firm young carrot.
Fish in the region's streams.
Don't threaten me with a dead fish.
With Nil and I, a trip worth taking.
What absolute twaddle.